This is Matthew Marshall from Portugal.net, and you're listening to the Seleção podcast.
Simões bending one for Torres. Eusebio. Oh my word! Have you ever seen anything like that?
Bem jogado por Simão, a passar por dois adversários. Simão a tentar oferecer o golo a Figo e a bola é golo! O golo de Figo!
Rui Costa já acreditou, vai tirar para o golo, atira, golo! 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 Cristiano Ronaldo, vai embora Cristiano Ronaldo! Bateu, golo, 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 golo! Chuta! Gol!
And we welcome you to episode number 92 of the Seleção podcast, a proud partner of Portugal.net and Palma Media. My name is Danny Pinto. I am your host. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode as we are, as of this recording, 1 day away from the quarterfinal match at Euro 2024 between our beloved Seleção and France. A rematch, of course, of the 2016 final in the Euros, and we all know how that one went. Hopefully there is a bit of a repeat. Just in terms of the victory, I can deal without the drama after the round of 16 win against Slovenia, but yeah, we are just 1 day away from the quarterfinal, and to preview the match is Portugal correspondent Matthew Marshall, and he'll be joining us here in just a couple of seconds. Just a reminder: make sure you're following us on all of our social media platforms. At Seleção Pod on both Twitter and Instagram, selecaopod.com on Facebook, and you can email the show selecaopod@gmail.com and bookmark selecaopod.com as one of your go-to pages. Of course, you can also subscribe to the show via podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course, we have been just on fire on YouTube with our live shows after the matches. So give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube right now. Hit the subscribe button, the little bell, so that you guys know when these episodes are popping up in your algorithm, in your subscriptions. But popping up right now from Germany is a man who's been at all of these matches thus far. And Matthew Marshall, how are you, sir?
All right, mate. On the road. How are you?
I could see that. Are you tired from cutting down all that lumber behind you?
On the way back up from Frankfurt, mate, I found a nice little place to hang out in timber country, mate. So yeah, just giving you an idea of where I've been hanging out in Deutschland.
So, speaking of Frankfurt, a bit of an emotional roller coaster in Frankfurt following the round of 16 win against Slovenia. Were you as exhausted as I was just observing and just seeing? Just to me, as I mentioned in the last episode with Eric Krakauer and Eric Vieira, I was like emotionally spent, and I hadn't been that emotionally spent watching a match that featured Portugal since that final in 2016 against France. What was like the just overall experience of covering that match for you in Frankfurt?
Yeah, I guess the Ronaldo penalty, the one that was saved, was the first. Wasn't that a dramatic thing, but I guess his reaction to it, increased the drama there. But yeah, that situation with Pep was just insane, and yeah, just so lucky for Portugal that Šeško. I mean, you could say that Diogo Costa made a good save, or just Šeško lost his composure and just choked. I mean, it was a pretty easy chance, I thought. So yeah, the emotions, and sitting next to Tom, somehow I've found a way to mellow out, Danny. I think it's just after all these sort of games and these heartbreaks. I noticed it at the under-17 Euros. I just sort of take it as it comes. But yeah, Tom was riding that roller coaster big time, especially in the penalty shootout where, yeah, Portugal nailed it.
Yeah, was there? Did you have a sense either way following the initial save on the Šeško breakaway? Did you have any kind of? Were you leaning towards any certain way on? Okay, we've made it to penalties. This is Portugal's gonna get through, or this is the end. Like, did you have any kind of initial feeling heading into penalties?
I think after Ronaldo scored the first one, I was pretty sure Portugal were gonna do it, and looked like, yeah, you could see that Costa was just on fire. But yeah, just Portugal just keeping up the drama for their supporters, everyone involved. Yeah, it's been an interesting campaign out here. I thought the first 2 games were pretty solid. Third game was just one of those games to forget, but it's interesting. There's so many different ways we can go, mate. So hit me up with some questions. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking.
Yeah, absolutely. No. Well, what was it like to witness Diogo Costa? We talked about the breakaway. There's obviously some luck involved in everything that happened in the latter parts of the second half of the second half of the extra time. But you get into penalties. Diogo Costa starts, or Slovenia starts off with the first attempt. He saves the first one. You mentioned Ronaldo scoring the first attempt for Portugal, but then it's 2 more saves, and it's a display that obviously has never been seen in the European Championship. But what was it like to actually witness what he did from a journalistic point of view, and even as a fan of football as you are?
Yeah, it's just an incredible moment. It's just one of those things you just hardly ever see, in any game. And so to see it in a game involving Portugal in such a monumental game, tournaments on the line, it's great. I'm really happy for how his career is going, and it's hard to hide from all the comments, Danny. But I saw people still talking about that incident against Morocco, the goal they conceded there. And it's like I said many times, so many games are just decided in a few seconds, in one moment, one or 2 decisions. So yeah, it's interesting how people look at it. But yeah, I remember talking about him with you before he even became a starter for Porto, and I was telling you then they should just put him straight in the starting team, and he's going to be Portugal's keeper. So yeah, it's great to see him just getting that confidence. If that incident against, and he also had that other incident in the group stage in Qatar, which
against Ghana
could have been a disaster. But yeah, it's good for any player to see them doing well and gaining confidence, especially a key position such as goalkeeper.
Yeah, he was one of the players that I was kind of highlighted heading into the tournament because. For me, Matthew, like he had, and again, this is just a personal opinion of mine, he hadn't fully shaken off that almost disaster against Ghana. And I know that, at the end of that match, you could see, Ronaldo saying, "Hey, we won. Shake it off. It's okay. We're on to the next." And then you mentioned the goal against Morocco, where some people could say it was Diogo Costa, some people could say it was Ruben Dias, but whatever the case was, it was the deciding factor in that match. And then you go to qualifying, where qualifying he wasn't really asked to do much during qualifying. So I highlighted him as one of the players that needed to step up or have a good tournament, because I just felt like he had not, in a tournament setting, probably still wasn't as I wasn't as confident with him behind the sticks. And what he did on what was it now, Monday, was unbelievable. And not that he needed, obviously, to convince me of anything, but to me, that was such a maybe career-defining performance going forward for any player, whether you're a goalkeeper or not. But for him specifically in that position, of goalkeeper. It was just an absolute joy to watch. It was an unbelievable display. And like, I haven't been able to not sing his praises these last few days to anyone who's asked me about him. So just a huge, for me, it was just a huge moment for him, and one that he rightfully deserves, given that he had detractors like myself in the last 2 years. I just thought it was a great moment for him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and but you're only as good as your last game, Danny.
Absolutely.
It's all about consistency, but yeah, confidence for any player is obviously really important, and for a goalkeeper, even more so. And for sure, he's going to be a lot more busy, you would imagine, against France than he has in these first 4 games.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because one of the things that I have, and again, what I thought we talked about a little bit in the last episode was, so both Portugal and France, and maybe more so France, just in terms of a surface level analysis, you could arguably say that these two teams have not shown their best football yet in this tournament. And Roberto Martinez was even, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he was said that, this tournament is like it's a progression of, trying to figure out what's working, how the formations get better. You're not looking to peak in the beginning. You're obviously looking to peak throughout. Are we setting up, Matthew, for perhaps a breakout game for both these countries, given that both these countries are not going to ideally, and you would think not ideally, be set up in a low block like some of their opponents so far in this tournament?
I went to 2 of the French games in the group stage, Austria and Poland, and I saw England against Slovakia, and Portugal not alone. Like, all the narratives that are going all around with Portugal, you could just substitute England or France. Really high world-class players, but not really performing so well as a team. Managers sort of taking too long sometimes to make substitutions or make other tactical changes. And I've sort of lost your question there, Matt. I'm sorry, but
no. What I was saying was, given that the struggles have been for both these teams, you mentioned England too. No one's really broken out of the. Arguably the 2 best teams in this tournament are playing in the quarterfinal to see who will play France and France or Portugal in Germany and Spain. I think Spain's been miles ahead of everybody else, and Germany playing as the host nation have kind of cemented their spot in the quarterfinals and are a great threat to win this tournament. But does this team, or does this match, kind of set up for a breakout kind of match for either or even both of these nations, given that they haven't played their best thus far?
Yeah, I think for sure. And even a lot of the stuff, like almost all teams have really relatively easy games in the qualifiers. That's the other sort of similarity I was going to get to. So for a lot of these teams, this is their biggest test in a very long time. So you really get to see what they're made of. And yeah, it'll give the winner of Germany and Spain also, just give them that huge boost to know that they've beaten a top team in a quarterfinal of a major competition, and sort of just blow off any sort of dust or any negativity, which seems to be abundant, really. So yeah, huge game for both teams, but like I say, it'll probably just come down to some individual moment. And one player doing something spectacular, taking his chance. But yeah, there's a few things that worry me about Portugal in this game. Maybe we'll get into that later. But yeah, just finishing off your question. Yeah, it's a massive game for like I said, all those 4 teams in the top half, and also I would say England. That's why I just wanted to sort of mention throughout this podcast how there's so many narratives that it seems like every team or a few teams have sort of similar concerns. And so that's why I don't really read that much into it. You know what I mean? I still just go into every game just with optimism and try and find a lot of positivity in what's happening, because I think there's a whole lot of positivity, with Portugal and what they've done. And so I think it's important to sort of concentrate on that, as with the other teams, But it's interesting, this dynamic with Mbappe and Ronaldo, isn't it? How you get these situations where these superstar players come up against each other. He obviously got that knock in the head. Should have not, bumped him around a bit, but then he scored the penalty. But it's a superstar matchup, isn't it? It's going to be a huge game.
You said you've seen a couple of the France matches. I'm trying to watch every single match that I can, but obviously I'm not able to. But they've scored 3 goals. 2 have been own goals. 1 has been a penalty. So they're still searching for their first goal in open play. But is there something that you are seeing from France that is starting to perhaps click, that could be kind of appear itself in this match against Portugal?
From what I saw, they just need to get Griezmann in the game a little bit more. I think they're a little bit sort of just going for individual magic up front, rather than a whole lot of combinations. But I mean, their team is just so strong. It just doesn't make sense that they wouldn't be playing better as a team. The players that Deschamps can bring off the bench, it's just ridiculous.
Absolutely,
yeah. Yeah, it's a huge, going to be a huge challenge, especially Portugal's record against France is not good. That 2016 win aside. So yeah, they're really going to have to step up. I think their defense has been a lot better, and that's where, Portugal have had a few bad moments in defense. That one, with Pep at the end there, but there's been others too where the opposition have managed to carve up their way to an opportunity a bit too easily, and so yeah, Martinez has to try and get that balance right, and it's going to be interesting to see what he does, if he does something really really out of the box again, or whether he just keeps it pretty much the same.
We'll get to Roberto Martinez after this last question regarding, I guess for me, it's about momentum. Is momentum a thing that you can carry in a tournament like this? And if so, do you think that there is enough momentum to carry over, or maybe not enough momentum, but do you think there's momentum for Portugal in the positive, coming off of such an emotional victory as the round of 16 match was against Slovenia?
I think that, inside the camp, it's much more important than what people make of it on the outside. I don't think the players really look at any of the negatives. They obviously know they could have played better, but I just can't stress enough just how it's just a few centimeters here and there in so many. And Ronaldo could have had 3 goals on another day easy. So he's getting himself into situations where he can score goals. And momentum for him is also really important. So yeah, if he can get this goal that seems to be weighing on him so heavily, maybe it's just weighing on everyone. Portugal win the game for sure. Momentum's huge, but you can be sure that every team, no matter how they win, inside the camp, then they are turning everything into a positive and just going straight ahead to the next game. We're still in this tournament. We're still here. I think people underestimate what the actual feeling is like in the camp. You know what I mean? Just getting through is the objective, and it doesn't look
absolutely
pretty for a lot of people watching on TV and from the outside, but the players and the camp inside, they don't see it that way.
We're talking with Matthew Marshall of Portugal.net. He has been at each of the 4 Portugal matches thus far. He'll be in Hamburg tomorrow for the quarterfinal against France. We talked Ronaldo there a little bit, and we talked about the positivity in the locker room, that they're obviously trying to move forward with. For me, I guess my question is, how telling was it after he missed the penalty in the first half of the extra time? And obviously, you see the emotion just kind of wash over him. He's out and out crying. But what did it tell you about the locker room, about how a guy who is considered one of the GOATs of this match kind of taking so much of the emotion on himself? Because it seemed to me that emotion said that I've failed my country, and having younger players, veterans, leaders of the team kind of pick him up and try to pick him up, to, letting him know that there was still another 15 minutes and perhaps penalties to play. How what was your take from watching that?
It's something that I've mentioned to you after under 17 European Championships, where you see just how even those guys, they feel like they've let a nation down. I can't ever forget Jota in Poland when he missed a penalty in the game. So if you try and these are young guys with no spotlight on them, so if you sort of transfer that to someone like Ronaldo,
sure,
it's just it's impossible to understand what it must be like to be Ronaldo. Like Tom, I was trying to convey to Tom when I was in Qatar just how incredible like Ronaldo mania is, and it's gone up. I would say it's gone up a notch since then. And Tom's been now like, now I know what, I can see it. It's just Ronaldo crazy. And what was it? 5, 6 people got onto the pitch in Gelsenkirchen there.
Yeah,
like
during
normally
the
it's
Turkey match,
one or two, like, and that's become normal, everywhere. But for that many to be able to get on,
and what about the one against Georgia where the fan, and I don't even want to call them a fan, but the pitch intruder jumped from jumped right in front of Ronaldo from the benches, from the stands, and that's been crazy to see. He brings that attention because of the the massive star that he is, but that has been alarming to say the least.
Yeah, I've talked about it for so long. I just don't really bother anymore. 2 journalists, or I think we're 2 separate journalists. One asked Bernardo, one asked Martinez after that game, and I saw it made its way into the British media. For me, it's just sort of old news now. But yeah, for that many to get on. But just getting back to the Ronaldo, I guess on a bigger scale. Yeah, I don't know why. Who knows what's going through his head? Who knows what I keep saying. I don't know what guys have going on in their personal lives. The game in Dortmund, I was sitting basically right in front of his family, and the cameras were just going crazy all the time. And I was thinking what it must be like to be his wife. Everywhere you go, cameras, and so yeah, you've had a lot of superstars in football, and there'll be more, but whether there'll be one as big as Ronaldo, I'm not sure. So yeah, why he lost it, I'm not exactly sure, but it was great to see Delo, and yeah, it's really, that's one of the positives you can take out of it, really, isn't it? Just the way that the players rallied around him, and just it was an incredible moment, really. It really, again, I keep saying, like, I've been fortunate to go to quite a lot of games, big games, small games, and I still see things that I've never seen before. But it could be at a 5th division game somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Portugal, or it could be a World Cup final, like something much bigger game. So yeah, it's something, and you never forget those things. So yeah, incredible moment, and to see him bury that penalty in the shootout was just, again, another moment you just never forget. Huge moment. And I think his performance was okay. I think he's, like I said, he's getting himself into good positions. He's linking up pretty well. That free kick was ridiculous when the referee went to move the ball back, and he's just like, okay, I'm still going to try from here. Like, he has scored from similar positions, but I don't think that far out from that angle.
No.
So just to wrap up, something I was thinking about Ronaldo in the last few days is that, like, he's scored almost every goal from every position imaginable throughout his career. So when he gets into those situations, it's just like a memory thing. It's just like, I mean, that one I don't think was you can excuse it. That was a bit ridiculous. But the other situations where he tries things and does things, I think it's for that reason. You know, it just might have been a long time ago, but he can, you know, he wouldn't have forgotten scoring almost every goal, I reckon, if you asked him. So anyway, we could talk about Ronaldo all day, but you know, he's going to be a starter. I'm not sure. I didn't really think it was worthwhile starting him in the third match there against Georgia.
Yeah,
but,
me too.
It is what it is. It's done.
You know, we were on a Twitter thread yesterday. You, me, I believe Tom. I even think Nathan got involved from. You know, Simon Curtis had sent us a link to an article, not even an article, a column from the Guardian. I think his name was Jonathan Wilson. And my take on the column was, I don't want to say hit piece because I think that's a bit strong, but I think there's a way to criticize Ronaldo without being disrespectful and just out and out just trolling and just doing it for clicks. I think that the vitriol for Ronaldo has been heightened for whatever reason this tournament. Maybe it's because he's at the end of his career. Maybe it's because people think that he shouldn't be on the squad. Whatever the case is, it does seem that, like, because he's searching for that goal, that's the only thing that the kind of outside easy trolls are looking at. But what have you kind of seen and kind of felt has been the lack of a better term, the coverage for Ronaldo in this tournament from journalists and media types and just kind of even fans of that you've seen?
I try and avoid everything if possible, apart from your podcast, Danny.
Thank you. I was waiting for that part.
Which is awesome, and I'm not bullshitting you or anyone else. But yeah, I do try and hide myself from everything, but it's impossible. And just like I said with the players getting on, the fans getting onto the pitch with Ronaldo, like, this has been happening for so long, and I've written about it enough times. And so the stuff with Ronaldo, for me, it's the same. You know, like, if I wrote something about Ronaldo now, I could have written it years ago, and it would have been basically the same. Why would you just keep doing the same thing? So it's obvious that, yeah, a lot of people are just sort of hoping and waiting for him to fail in a spectacular fashion. I don't know. It's just the way that the modern world is, you know, with the way that the internet has changed.
He's an easy target, and I know he's an easy target. A lot of it is self-inflicted. I'm not saying that he is like without. But here's the thing: it's like, you can criticize. I even sent in that group text. I even sent an article from the Athletic from Oliver Kay, which is, I think that there's got to be a fine. Or not even a fine line, but there has to be a balance between criticizing, which he is absolutely fair game for, and then all this other bullshit that comes with it that has him being the easy target that he is. And you kind of mentioned, it's kind of like today's world now. It's like it's so vogue right now to just tear people down from thousands of miles away with your thumbs and at your fingers. But I just wish it was more fair.
That's what it is. But it was the same with Fernando Santos.
Well, I'm not going to. No, I'm kidding.
People have. I mean, which Portuguese player hasn't been criticised? João Felix cops it heavy. Some people still give it to Bruno Fernandes. Like, it goes on and on. It's just the modern world. It's changed a lot, and that's why I got quite upset with a lot of that stuff about Santos. I mean, I never said he was an awesome coach. I just kept saying FPF are not going to sack him. And what people should understand, and this is probably a case with England. Like, I want to keep bringing up these similarities,
Sure.
because they exist, especially in the media, I guess, or even in the online landscape. I mean, when you've got journalists asking players and managers, particularly players, it happens more in these tournaments where you have players much more accessible in pre-match and post-match. But the post-match, you always get the man of the match, so he's always happy. And it's a different sort of scenario because they won the game usually. But what happens is, what you notice is that a lot of the online noise, let's say, a lot of the narratives, the media outlets, and you could put this Jonathan Wilson thing into this category. You know, they're looking for the negative type stuff, and then the players have to answer these questions, and so in a way, it's getting introduced almost
Yes.
into the camp. It's getting these. You could say, oh, well, it's just a question at a press conference, and who cares? You know, he's going to go back to the camp and whatever. But it's like, why would, like, if you were supporting your child or your at some game, some match, some sport they were playing, you know, would you be introducing negative stuff before the match? You know, controversy, or would you be saying, look, you know, just focusing on positives and trying to encourage them? And that's why you see this with England. You see a huge disconnect in what support should be. And this goes back to what you were saying, criticism and stepping over the line, whatever, making it personal, attacks, different types. There's heaps of different variations. That people should realize that it doesn't really end on the internet or on Twitter or you know, podcasts. Like, managers and players can say, oh, we don't read it, we don't see the news, we don't hear, we don't look at anything. But I think that's almost impossible. And like I say, when you're getting
In this
asked
day and age, absolutely.
when you're getting asked negative, stupid stuff in press conferences, it's right there. And so it just, to me, it doesn't make sense. Like, for sure, be critical of stuff, but yeah, it's different. Like, and that's why I mentioned with Jonathan Wilson, I'm not trying to be a hero and say, look, you know, I've met so and so, but like in Qatar, I made an effort to go around and say hello to a lot of these journalists that I've admired for many years. I got that opportunity and I took it. And I like a lot of the stuff that he's done. I don't read or listen to all of it, you know. But yeah, and so it's the same as I say with players and managers. When you're around them regularly, if you're lucky enough to be in those situations, you change the nature of your criticism. You know, I used to be way more critical until I started, you know, going to games and press conferences and mix zones and that. So yeah, it's one of those things, mate. But it's just one of the modern world has changed so much with the internet, and it seems like all the negativity gets projected a lot more. I mean, we could spend an hour talking about positive stuff. So, you know, let's
do that. Let's get
do
to
that.
a little. Let's get to a little bit of the positive stuff. The last thing I do want to say about the Ronaldo thing is, you know, it becomes a distraction no matter what. How it's so if you, and because you mentioned, like, what's the player or Roberto Martinez supposed to do when they get a direct question regarding Ronaldo? If they don't answer the question or say we're not focusing on one player, we're focusing on the team, all of a sudden the media can spin it to be like, oh, they don't like Ronaldo, or they don't want to talk about Ronaldo. And then it's like, there's so many ways that this is driven, and it's a pain in the ass sometimes to see it, but it also is today's modern world, not only in sport, but just in celebrity and kind of what we as fans of this player and of this national team have been, you know, should be used to, I guess, by now. But it's, I think for me, I'm so tired of it, given that the end is so much more closer than the beginning with his career. And the last thing I guess I want to see is so much negativity. Again, criticism is fair. The negativity, I think, has kind of gone over the top a little bit for me. but we'll leave it at that for now. The positive that I want to talk about for me has been the presence and the emergence of Vitinha as a stalwart in that starting 11. How have you seen his game kind of grow in these 4 matches? Because up until this tournament, and I would say in qualifying 2, he didn't start all the time, but to me, he's kind of penciled himself in to the starting 11 going forward for the next few years. How have you seen his progression during this tournament?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Like I throw him into Diogo Costa and Fabio Vieira were really those 3 key guys in the under-21 side. Vieira's move to Arsenal hasn't worked out so well, but yeah, for Vitinha to go to PSG and become a part of their team, and then now, I mean, I thought there was only really 2 spots available in the team, or two positions that were up for grabs or a bit doubtful. One of them was in midfield, and he's taken over, so that's really good. His close control is just fantastic. Really positive, likes to play the ball forward, looking for opportunities. Passing range is really good. He's pretty tenacious. He gets around pretty quickly. He puts himself into good positions. He's doing a lot of work. He's being asked, like Bruno is being asked to do a lot in midfield. But yeah, he's been able to handle it pretty well, and it looks like he's basically forced his way into the starting side. So tremendous to see, and hopefully just keeps improving.
We're talking with Matthew Marshall of Portugal.net as we are preparing for tomorrow's quarterfinal against France at Euro 2024 taking place. The quarterfinal is in Hamburg. We're just talking about the round of 16 victory and leading up to the quarterfinal here against France tomorrow as of this recording. What have you thought about Roberto Martinez in terms of his either formations, his decisions, his tactics in these first 4 matches?
Yeah, normally I just try and understand why managers do things. And to be honest, I went to every press conference. I haven't been to the last 2. Most of the time I don't really care what managers say anyway in any game. I've always believed they just do their talking on the pitch with their starting lineups, tactics, substitutions, and all that. So I try to understand what he's thinking and why they do it. And I think in the first game, just wanted to give Nuno Mendes and Pep 90 minutes without kind of exposing them too much. That was the main objective in that game, obviously to win as well. I mean, they hammered. We got to say Czechia now and Turkey.
That's very good.
I mean, I think we should. I just wanted to go off topic, Danny, and say if countries are going to keep doing that, then Portugal should get in on it, and you should be like
Do you have a name?
The head of the campaign. Now, the way you normally say it at the end of your podcast when you do the
just yell
Portugal. Yeah, I think everyone just has to say the way you do at the end of podcast, and that's just the way Portugal. We're changing the name of our country, and that's it. And now I've forgotten what the question was again. I'm in a busy place, mate. I'm getting distracted a lot, but
it's all good. No, it just
get me back on track again.
Yeah, just what you thought of Roberto Martinez's tactics, lineups, and substitutions.
The first game was obviously a bit strange, but I'm trying. Like I said, I think the reason that was one of the main reasons, and it was surprising to see Mendes come through that in 90 minutes, and he even changed to basically left back for the last 20, 30 minutes or whatever it was, and he was working. So that was a huge positive. And then the second game, it was obvious that's pretty much his first choice. Third game, again, we've had a few write-offs under Martinez, or not full game write-offs, but some write-offs. And I remember a few. There was one I think in Liechtenstein where he started Neves in a back 3 and one midfielder. That game in Slovenia, the friendly, was just like a write-off. And this third game, I mean, but you can't underestimate for Georgia what an occasion this was.
Absolutely.
So it was just one of those situations where they just had everything to play for. And I mean, Antonio Silva, he was looking shaky for Benfica in a lot of situations towards the end of in the second half of the season. And yeah, I mean, I just looked at Tom when that happened and just like, man, and you just had a bad feeling like after 2 minutes. So yeah, I mean, obviously that's not really down on Martinez. And again, if you're looking at that game, he just wanted to give Inacio, Antonio Silva, and Danilo, give them all a game. So I think in his mind, that's the way he's looking at a lot of these situations, or how he looked at a lot of those situations, and how he did in friendlies, and even in some of the qualifiers when we had it, wrapped up. He's thinking more about just game time, and he says this, especially in the friendlies. It's different objectives for manager than just winning the game. And then, so you knew he was going to go back to that first choice against Slovenia, and it's just, again, so many similarities with all these other teams, Danny. Like these opposition, they just so used to playing in a low block. They're so used to doing this against, and they're just the way they train. I'm sure the analytics they've got, the way that they practice these situations, it's really hard to get through. And that's why, Bruno tends to have difficult situations against these types of opposition. There's just no way for him to operate, really. So, yeah, I'm not that critical of Martinez. Just the subs, like, of course it worked out well in the first match, but 90th minute, like, I don't know why you make
let's talk about the subs in the Slovenia match, because that's where I have been the most critical of him thus far in this tournament, because we talked about Vitinha, how positive he was, and he was the first player taken off, I believe, for, I want to say, Jota. That sub made no sense to me whatsoever, given that there was a lot of, I don't want to say negative football, but it just seemed that Bernardo Silva was struggling on that right-hand side. And if you were to bring Jota in, I thought the easy choice would have been to take out Bernardo Silva, because you could still have a guy like Vitinha, who was emerging as one of the more important players, not only on the squad, but specifically in the midfield. I thought that was a questionable, probably the most questionable sub that he has made thus far. Obviously, Bernard stays in the game. He hits the PK, the last PK to win the game. But I guess for me, that was where I was most critical of Martinez, was in that sub. I mean, we'll see what happens going forward. But that was where my take was strongest, was on the Vitinha substitution in the the 65th minute, something like that.
Yeah, and again, there would have been reasons. Like, he would have had a lot of reasons for doing that.
Sure.
I'm not exactly sure why, but I mean, Jota came on, did really well, and you have to take someone off. And I'd love to talk I mean, there's so many different ways you could go with just bigger picture stuff. I mean, I'll just go on for hours, mate. But like, so many of the things
they only play tomorrow. We got plenty of time.
So many things people criticize Santos for. Martinez is having exactly the same problems, whether it's coming up against these low block teams, what to do with Ronaldo, Bernardo Silva on the right sort of side there. You know what I mean? There could be even more deeper stuff, like cultural stuff, whatever, you just don't know. But you can see that sometimes certain things are just bigger than a manager, But yeah, I mean, I think overall he's done okay. Some of the things are a bit curious. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure Portugal's fortunes are going to be decided on something Martinez does. It'll be a player taking his chance, defenders stepping up in critical moments, Diogo Costa making a big save here or there. You know what I mean? I think when you really get down to it, most things are decided by the players on the pitch. And of course, managers are hugely important, but especially in the international game, you just don't have that long with the guys. Sometimes the managers, I think, what they do or don't do is a bit amplified at certain times. But yeah, I'd like to see some subs at earlier times. Whether he'll ever bring off Ronaldo in a game like a knockout game, I can't see that happening. But yeah, I think overall he's done well. It's difficult. The Bernardo Silva thing you could really dissect a lot. What I would say is that it's been really good to see Nuno Mendes come back in, because obviously I remember talking to you after that game against Morocco, and I firmly believe if Mendes was fit, played that game, Portugal get past Morocco at the World Cup. I think he was that important. I mean, he's sensational, and he hasn't had much chance to build up a relationship with Leão. But we saw that combination, result in the opening goal the other day. And we know just how good Cancelo and Bernardo Silva can combine on the right-hand side. So I think, if you wanted to throw a little bit of criticism Martinez's way, it's just like, I think he just gets a bit too complicated at times. Just keep it simple. Keep those two combinations going down the wing.
He can oversimplify a lot sometimes.
Yeah, just keep those two combinations going down the wing. Get your fullbacks forward. Of course, you need cover. That's the big problem. It's exactly the same problem Santos had that Martinez is facing in transition. Like, obviously you need Paulinho in there, but that Bruno wants to go forward. That's why Vitinha is working out really well. But you need to have systems in place. So when your fullbacks are pushing up that high, the opposition just doesn't get the ball and just go bang, bang, and they're in on goal, which we've seen happen to Portugal already in this tournament. That's one of the biggest things Martinez has to get right. But every manager has the same issue with transition. But I mean, I don't see it's how. Like I said, the team pretty much picks itself. All I would do is I'd only make one change and just bring Jota on for Leão. I would never. I've said since day one I wouldn't have Leão as a starter. I think Jota's much better, much more influential, combines a lot better with teammates, much more dangerous, much more effective. And but yeah. I don't like throwing too much criticism around, mate, but that would be my concerns with Martinez. But fine lines and a little bit of luck goes Portugal's way. Players take their chances, and then he looks like a genius,
Or the other way, right?
Penalty,
yeah.
Player misses a penalty. Šeško misses that chance, and Martinez out. So again, mate, I just try and stay on a pretty even line and not get it too up, too down with anything. And managers is kind of one of them.
Yeah, if we're looking at another match too, England being 30 seconds away from crashing out in the round of 16, and
exactly, mate.
And Bellingham saves his ass. Yeah, for sure.
Imagine being a proper journalist doing that game, and having to change all your narratives, and you know what I mean. Like
the article was written, and all of a sudden Bellingham hits the bicycle, and all of a sudden it's like, well, delete. Got to start this one over again.
I'll give people a bit of inside information, Danny. That a lot of journalists have to get their articles done pretty much, minutes after the final whistle. Like, the clock is ticking, mate, as soon as the referee blows the final whistle. I noticed this in the first few games I went to as a journalist. And what I noticed was that these journalists that have to do that, they're not watching the game. Well, they're certainly not watching the last 20 minutes of the game. They're too busy writing their article, and they miss a lot of stuff that happens. And then obviously now you've got tools, so you can just copy and paste from UEFA or BBC, whatever it is. And that's what a lot of these guys do. So anyway, that's just a little bit of inside information, but yeah, it's torture. And then when you've got penalty shootout, it's a nightmare for journalists, mate. So sometimes people ask me, like, sometimes you give analysis, and quite a lot of analysis, and sometimes like none. Like, why? And I said, I want to go home, mate. I want to get out of there. I got to get back to my car. My accommodation's like an hour. It's after midnight already. Just want to get out of there. But yeah, it's anyway, I've gone off track again, mate. I keep doing it, but
no, you're good. You're good. You're good.
I like taking people behind the scenes a bit, because there's really interesting stuff happens in press conferences, and people organizing tournaments. It's interesting.
You mentioned that you would I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if you had your druthers, you would start Diogo Jota in place of Rafael Leão in this upcoming match against the quarterfinals. Do you see, or do you have a feeling in covering Martinez now for almost 2 years? Do you have a feeling or a sense of what he may come out with tomorrow? If let's say it would be like Diogo Jota in for Rafael Leão, could you see him go to the back three? Could you see him kind of staying with the same lineup, with the exception of Jota in for Leão? What is there any kind of feeling or a way that you're leaning in terms of what you would expect Portugal to come out in tomorrow against France?
He's really hard to predict, but I think you won't see really. I don't think you'll see any changes, to be honest. Yeah, it's always hard to, it's always difficult to think what he will do and what I would do, and I try not to go into too much of what I would do. I know I just did there, but yeah, he's a hard guy to predict. I mean, who would have predicted that first game and third game was so predicting some of his lineups it's interesting. Some of them are just impossible, some of them easy. It's just but this one I would say more easier to predict. But there could be one or two tweaks. I mean, I can see the Bernardo Silva criticisms, but as I say, there's certain players, like every player, that you need to sort of do things around them to get the best out of them. You need to have situations happening where they're combining with other guys, and there's overlaps, combination overloads, whatever you want. And he's one of those guys. So that's why I said I would just keep it simple. But it's going to be a huge test, Danny. I'm really happy I came on the podcast before. I think I've come on after like almost the last few times Portugal have been knocked out of tournaments. So it's nice to get in ahead of someone else. Not that I'm saying that's going to happen. I'm still confident. Like I was confident before the tournament.
Sure.
Even after that thing with Pep, I'm just always going with confidence. I just see it as I just don't really see it as complicated, I think, as some other people. I just try and keep it. I just think it is pretty much a simple thing. You put the players out there, rough formations. Obviously, they're going to move around a lot. You practice a lot of stuff, but a lot of it just comes down to who holds their nerve. Šeško didn't hold his nerve, it's going to be a huge game, Danny. I wonder what all these games are huge, isn't it? It's pretty good to have the Spain-Germany entree, if you might say. I mean,
absolutely.
I'd love to know how many millions of people are going to be watching this game. And the Ronaldo thing, I mean, I don't look at TV numbers and all those things, but it'd be interesting to see they sort of break records,
Yeah, that France-Portugal game should be one for the viewing record books here. Last thing I want to ask you, and I kind of want to go back to the start of what we were talking about in terms of the emotion, in terms of the exhaustive kind of manner in which the round of 16 match against Slovenia happened. We've talked a lot about Ronaldo. We haven't talked a lot about Pep in this episode, and I'll just kind of take you through what my now 25 years of really watching this. God, I am old. Watching this the national team has been like, but the majority of it, the last 20 with Ronaldo, and then with Pep coming in a few years later. I saw the majority of my fandom of this national team kind of flash before my eyes when Pep lost the ball and Šeško had the breakaway, and I'm like, is this how both of these absolute legends for this national team in the sport, but specifically for this national team, is this how they're going to be remembered? Is this going to be the lasting memory or the last memory that we have? Pep losing the ball, Ronaldo having the PK blocked, and the roller coaster that was that match, to me, is something that, again, I haven't felt since the 2016 final. But for Pep specifically, I loved seeing his interaction with Diogo Costa after. It's almost like he said, "Thank you for giving me one more chance." And given that the opponent is who it is, I don't see Roberto Martínez not starting Pep, but at the same time, it's like he's 41. He also is on. He played almost 120 minutes. You could see that it was more heavy legs than bad technique. Is there any scenario you see that Pep is not in the starting lineup tomorrow?
Zero chance, mate. No, he's starting.
Yeah, I think so too. But it's just father time,
unless it's something physical you don't know about. No, I mean, it was just Yeah, I thought I'd seen the last of him against Morocco. Honestly, with that busted arm, I didn't think he'd play again. And then he hardly played for Porto last month or two. Um, yeah, it was such an incredible moment. I mean, just see him. I couldn't watch the replay. I didn't watch the replays until yesterday, and I just kept watching it. It looked. All I had was my memory from seeing it live,
Sure.
and my memory is a little bit different. It looked worse on the replay. A lot worse. I can't explain it. I'm not sure fatigue is an excuse in that one, but no, he's starting 100%. I mean, yeah. I mean, hopefully that's the thing with Ronaldo. I mean, you can all this criticism, all this stuff. People don't just sit back and just appreciate how cool it is to be able to still watch him play and hope like you do before every single game that he's going to produce some magic. Shouldn't really change that much. Of course, he's older. Um, can he jump quite as high as he used to? I mean, what are you going to do? What equipment are you going to get out to test that? How much slower is he than he used to? But some of those crosses in that against Slovenia were just so close to his head. The free kick, a little bit here or there. I mean, not defending he should take every free kick, but I'm just saying that and so even Tom said that to me the other day too. Like, because I keep telling him, just don't take any of these games for granted. Seeing Ronaldo, especially live, like to see the madness that people go through. You can see who's seeing Ronaldo for the first time in stadiums. You know what I mean? They're just like a little kid underneath the Christmas tree at 4 years old.
And sometimes literally a little kid who gets on the field.
So that's what I try and do, mate. You know what I mean? I can't even. For me, it hasn't. Apart from that third match against Georgia, for me, it's no question Ronaldo will start. But it's not me saying that I want this to happen. I think this should happen. I just know that that's what Roberto Martínez is going to do. So for me, it's not. The question is no longer worthwhile or valid because you just know he's going to start. And going on about shouldn't he be a starter? Are they better off without him? This is just redundant news, redundant narratives at this point. So, like I said, better to shift your focus to just enjoying the moment. Huge game against France. Can he come up with some magic? I mean, that's the thing about being critical, Danny. Like, again, when you're critical, super critical, and then that player just comes out and does something spectacular and makes you look foolish. How many times has Ronaldo done that? Where are all those journalists? Where do they go? They go into hiding, and then they wait till something negative happens, or they're just praying for something negative to happen. And this is not only Ronaldo. This is Portugal. It was with Fernando Santos. So, yeah, focus your attention on being positive. This is a massive game. France would be a massive scalp. I looked at the stats, and I think Portugal haven't beaten France in regulation time in like 14 straight matches. Last time I think was 1975. I mean, Platini. You look at the history in this fixture; it's tough. But the good thing going for us is that Mbappe's a bit busted up. Rabiot suspended. I'm not a massive fan of Rabiot, but he's pretty important for their team. There's just no reason why Portugal can't win this game. Ronaldo can't go off and just score a couple of goals. Like, it's not that unrealistic.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So that's why another reason why I don't try to go into the critical lane that often, mate, because I've seen it too many times. Not just him, anyone. You got to, if you want to come in and start laying the boot into certain players, you got to be careful, because they could make you look foolish really quickly. And Ronaldo is one of the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, let's hope he does it.
All right, Matthew. Well, we greatly appreciate your time on episode number 92 of the Seleção podcast. You can follow Matthew on social media at Noobs Corp. That's NOOBZCORP. You can obviously find his articles and post match recaps, I should say, on Portugal.net. It's been a pleasure, sir, to have you back on. Not after a loss.
Yeah, it's a nice change, mate. And
It's get
keeping
out of
up
here with
the
that stuff.
I know it's a rule now. I got to be in a different place, so I had to make sure that was going to happen. I'm in the lumber country, mate. But it's really weird being in Germany because obviously I lived here for a while, and most of these tournaments I've been doing is in a new place. So I'm seeing new stuff and having all that excitement of learning about a new culture and things. But I've managed to offset that, Danny. I got a concert tonight. I'm seeing Nile Rodgers and Chic, and the support act is Cool and the Gang, mate. So I'm going to freak out big time. And and I'm also going to see ZZ Top in Berlin. Going to see Status Quo
nice.
and Canned Heat in Munich, and then coming back up for a festival over the border there in the Netherlands. Alice Cooper and John
Still
Fogerty.
doing it.
Hart was supposed to be playing, but they had to pull out because Ann Wilson's got a medical issue. But either way, it's all happening, mate. And I'm just riding the positive train. I mean, yeah, that you should see Tom, mate. I mean, he's going up and down. He's like, going nuts. And I'm just now, like I said, I'm just sort of just sitting there being cool. I don't know what's happened to me.
It's almost like you're his support human.
No, I don't know what's happened to me, Danny. I mean, I used to be a lot more like that, especially with the Seleção, but I don't know. I think it's just the accumulation of these experiences now, and I don't know. Maybe it was Slovenia or something like that, but I'm sure. I think I'm pumped. This France game is huge. It's what everyone's been waiting for. As I said, those qualifiers. But every team has a situation where you're playing pretty average opposition. Then in the group stage, especially with this expanded tournaments, So it's game on, Danny. It's game on, and I'm loving it, mate. And again, you're going to be the campaigner, man. If countries can just change their name or the way you say it, then we got to do it, mate. And you're the number one guy. We're going to get you out there on advertisements. We're going to have to make you go viral, Danny.
No, I don't know about
for
that.
The people to say Portugal properly.
Yeah, celebrate good times. Come on that one. I don't know about that. But Matthew, all the best to you, man. I appreciate you coming on. Safe. I wanted to ask you about the trains. So we had Derek Ray on a few episodes back, and he mentioned that sometimes the trains can be a bit of an issue in terms of being on time. Have you had any kind of travel issues, you or Tom? Either to the matches, after the matches, anything like that?
I drove here, mate. So I've got a vehicle I can basically sleep in, and so I've had accommodation on and off here, and I haven't been really needing trains. So I've been lucky, but I lived here, so I know how bad trains in Germany are. So not like a surprise to me. And you just got to try and get connections where there is no connections. That really maximize your chances, and don't plan to get there. You got to get there hours and hours before. There's a lot of horror stories in this country with trains, but hopefully nothing too serious for anybody. I don't think there's been anything. Just getting out of them, but it's pretty much normal. When you have those 9 o'clock games that go to extra time and penalties, it's crazy for everyone involved. But no, fortunately, I can sort of avoid all that stuff. But I'll be using trains a fair bit. But as I say, experienced campaigner with Deutsche Bahn, mate. I know what it's all about. So I've seen everything and prepared, mate. It's like going out in the rain without an umbrella, mate. Getting a German train. Be prepared.
be prepared, and hopefully Portugal will be prepared tomorrow as they take on France in the quarterfinals of Euro 2024. Our thanks to Matthew Marshall for joining us here on episode number 92. Safe travel, sir.
All right, man. No worries. Forza.
And that will do it, folks, on episode number 92 of the Seleção podcast. I have been your host, Danny Pinto. Remember to like and follow all of our social medias at Seleção Pod, Twitter and Instagram. SeleçãoPod.com is the website. Facebook.com/Seleção Pod is the Facebook page. And, of course, you can always contact us at seleçãopod@gmail.com. Subscribe everywhere, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's Spotify. However you are either watching or listening to the pod, make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you can give us all the support that you possibly can, because it makes the show more visible both in the podcast and YouTube medium. So big match tomorrow, big game tomorrow. Let's hope that the Seleção is victorious and gets to the semifinals. Obviously, if that happens, I'll have to bring Matthew back on so that it's bringing him on after another win. But our thanks to him, and our thanks to all of you for watching and viewing episode number 92 of the Seleção podcast, a proud partner of Portugal.net and Palma Media. And as always, this one's for Matthew. Força Portugal!